business analytics, accounting, project management, finance, marketing, teaching, nursing, law, engineering, mechatronics engineering, hospitality, chefs, public health, and hundreds of more. These are some of the courses that I continuously get asked about in my comment section, and honestly, it has become a little overwhelming for me. I feel like I want to help you all, but there are so many different courses, so many different fields that I possibly cannot know about at all, to be honest. But what I kind of do is go into the internet, go into the research field, go into Australian websites and learn about these courses and get back to you with information. But I do feel whatever I provide you, not just me, whatever you listen on YouTube or online on internet, you have to take each and every information with a grain of salt, because people tell what they come across, people tell what they think they've seen, they've read. But if you're leaving that decision in someone else's hand, it's a big decision of your future, and you possibly cannot leave that decision in someone else's hand, okay? And I feel that I want to settle this once and for all. I want to give you a framework for you to be able to research on your own and understand what exact course you want to choose for your future. And let me be very honest with you, you can come here, do any of these courses, study any of these courses, and even land a job. But some of these courses will help you land PR here. Some of them will kind of not help you land a PR. But that is the kind of gamble that you will be taking, and that is the kind of risk you'll be taking, which is where I feel you need to be very, very careful as to what kind of course you're going to choose for yourself. I speak to so many students almost every single day, and there's one common pattern that I've seen. I feel like there are 3 to 4 type of students that I come across almost every single week through my one-on-one calls. There are people who haven't yet chosen a course that they really want to do here in Australia, and they want to understand from me. They've shortlisted a few courses and they want to know the ground reality of whether that course will work or not in Australia, which I feel is the right approach to go, because after you've landed here, it's a problem. But then the second type of students are those that actually have landed here. It's been a few months, 6 to 8 months, and now they're realizing that the course that they chose is not going to support their long-term goals. That is where I feel the problem begins, because you're already navigating a whole new country, a whole new continent, a whole different lifestyle, and suddenly you realize the course that you're doing will not help you stay for long term in this country. And that's when the reality hits. That's when you feel like, what have I done? How will I now get out of this mess? Which is why I'm making this video. I want to solve this question for you once and for all as to what course will actually help you land a job, land a PR. What is the kind of future in a particular field? My plan is to cover almost every field in this video, so maybe jump ahead into the field that you're planning to do and we'll see how things go. And honestly, I feel there is a lot of bullshit going on around in YouTube and in this, immigration space. I feel like there are agents who are suggesting anything and everything for their own benefit. And I know I speak about this quite often, but this is the trend I've seen. I speak to you students almost every single day, and that day one student just told me that he's here, he's doing business analytics, and he went to see an agent, and that agent suggested him to do accounting. And on top of it, he also told him that if you do accounting, you will not have to do professional year. So he was kind of selling accounting to that student based on not having to do professional year anymore. We will talk about professional year in detail, but for now, just know that professional year is a 1-year course that you do after your course, which is for another $10,000, and you get 5 points towards your PR for that. So the agent was suggesting that person to do accounting because there's no more PY that you have to do, which means you lose out on those 5 points that you get towards your PR. So why would you do it? And did anyone ask him why do we not have PY anymore, which we used to have earlier? So basically PY was removed because the enrollments in those PY institutes dropped significantly. No one was doing accounting anymore. So basically they decided to remove PY for accounting totally. Now that does not mean that accounting became hot again, but I do feel that accounting might become hot in 2026. But that's just what I think. Now, based on my thinking, you shouldn't go and sign up for that course. You have to do your own research. I'm obviously here to give you the on-ground reality, to set you up for success, but That is after you've done some of your research yourself. And this is exactly why different opinions are so dangerous, because agents, seniors, even me, we just tell you things from what we see, what we read. But like, I can only tell you about how to live a successful life in Australia, because that's what I've been doing for the past 8 years. And I can even tell you probably what you can do in, I don't know, business analytics field, or how to become an analyst. But I cannot tell you how to get a PR. I cannot guarantee you that if you do business analytics, you'll get PR, because that demand changes constantly in Australia. Which is why I want to talk about how you should go about searching for a particular field, for a particular course, if you want to do that in Australia. Let's get right into it. Now, how do we actually understand about what Australia needs right now? What is it that's currently helping people get PRs here? What is it that's actually helping people get settled in Australia? Or, even if you leave about the PR part, what is it that's actually getting people jobs in Australia? What I feel is that after pursuing a course, you definitely want to settle in this country, right? You want PR, you want to be able to just settle here. But I just feel that even before PR, the thing that you really need to think of is job. Whether after spending all of those money on that international student fee, taxes, living here, working here, giving so much of your time and your energy to this country, what do you get back in return? Are you able to work here in the field that you study? There's no point at all in not being able to work as what you actually studied. You would hate everything if you don't get to do that. Because, I don't know, if you studied, let's say, business analytics and you don't get a job as an analyst, you will feel bad, and that would show up in your every other area of life. Which is why it's very important for you to understand what are the jobs, what are the skills required in 2026 or from 2026 onwards in Australia, and how to actually do your own research. You can't just go to ChatGPT and ask, what are the skills that Australia needs right now and what will help me get PR? These are the things that are not working in 2026 anymore. And like I always say, please use AI as well with a grain of salt. It's not your one-stop solution to everything, okay? It can just assist you in doing things. It can just help you get a little bit of clarity, but it can't do, heavy lifting for you. You have to do it yourself. So first of all, I will take you through this whole website of Jobs and Skills Australia. It's called jobsandskills.gov.au, and this is where all the data of Australian government lies. This is where, they've laid out everything so clearly as to what they actually need. What is it that Australia currently requires? And if you can actually, scout this website properly, believe me, you will have utmost clarity. So I've said this many times in my videos, but what I want is, I want to take you through this website. I want to show you what I've understood, and then I want you to do your research at the back end. But let's get right into it. We are here on this website. It's called jobsandskills.gov.au, and as you can see, the first page is, we help Australia meet its present and future skills needs. And it clearly says so much. The first line says everything. Now it has this, connecting for impact. They have this 2025 jobs and skills report, which, we can have a look at. So they've published this report, which is all about jobs and skills report in 2025. And I would just suggest going through this report in your time, just to understand a bit more about Australia and their, the kind of things that they focus on. And now if we just kind of go back to the homepage, we can see there's news at the top, there's topics, there's data. So this has basically high quality data about better understanding Australia's skills and labor shortages. And that is where we immigrants come in place. Where is Australia wanting to put more focus on, depending on where they have maximum shortage, right? So in this data section, they have employment projections, internet vacancy index, labor force trending, occupation industry profiles, recruitment experiences, regional labor market indicator, and total new vacancies. Now, I want to go through each and every one of these with you in detail. So let's start with employment projections. Now, basically, it's saying that total enrollment in Australia is projected to grow by 961,000 people over the next 5 years, and by nearly 2 million people over the next 10 years, reaching 16.6 million employed people by May 2035. Now, obviously, you can see that they are looking for 2 million people in the next 10 years, which is a huge number, and imagine how much workforce they currently need. Now, as obviously this website itself says, with this projection, with this kind of overall picture, there are their weaknesses and their strengths. There are different kind of occupations that they want and some occupations that they don't want at all, because they have them, or they know that Australians who are already here would be adept to do those jobs, right? Now, obviously, under this data field, I want you to go through as much as you can, go and read all the reports that are available. If you're not able to understand what anything means, maybe copy it, give it to ChatGPT, ask it to summarize it for you in detail. But a few links that I really want you to go through with me right now, okay? First one is, let's check out occupation and industry profiles. Now, if we land here, we can obviously see some quick stats: female share of total employment, what is the median age of people, how many people are working part-time, 31%, and what is the median weekly full-time earnings. So it's like almost 1700 Australian dollars. But if you come on this explore by occupation, let's see. Now, as you can see, I get so many questions about accountants. Now, look at here. Accommodation and hospital managers, let's say, are only 4,400 in the whole of Australia, but accountants are 225,000. There's another category of accountants which is general, and that is also almost 140,000. Then accounting clerks, there's also 143,000. An accounts clerk is less. Actors are quite less because not a lot of Australians become actors apparently. And this is what I'm talking about. Now, what are some of the occupations that you think you want to become? And one more thing I want to tell, Australia does not work on course. When you ask me, hey, what do you think about Masters of Management? What do you think about Project Management? What do you think about Masters in IT? I want you to think it in terms of occupation. I want you to think in terms of what will you actually become after doing that course. So these days I've been getting a lot of Masters in Management, Masters in Project Management. So maybe let's search for project managers. Have a look now. There's call center managers, there's cafe managers, betting agency managers. So these are all managers that manage a certain field, like for example, betting managers or call center managers. Obviously, there are a lot of them. But to be able to become this level of manager, you need to first become, like if you're a call center manager, you first need to become a call center consultant, a call center worker, a service desk person. And then after, 4 to 5 years in that company, in that field, that's when you become a manager. So what is it that you become after doing project management? Maybe you start as a consultant, okay? So maybe we can search consultant, but if you want, we can just quickly have a look at project managers. So as you can see, as soon as you type a particular name here, it pulls up everything from that name, okay? So you understand, right? These are the type of managers. But now let's see, let's have a look at consultants, okay? So agricultural consultants, environmental consultants, recruitment consultants, management consultants. So there are already 65,000 management consultants, which is obviously not a lot, but we will also have a look at what the job data says, what the open jobs talk about, okay? So we can see that it's not a huge shortage of consultants, but also not highly in demand, I would say. Now, I think let's look at analysts, okay? I think that is something way too anticipated. Cool, have a look. So ICT business analysts, 20,000. ICT business and system analysts, 51,000. ICT business development managers, that's a separate thing. Project managers, 50,000. So you can see there are a lot of analysts that are already employed, like more than 2 lakh are already employed, right? So let's have a look at teachers. Now, I also want to look at the number of vacancies, because that is the actual data that tells us how many jobs are available. I always tell this on my channel that I want you to do a research on Seek, Indeed, LinkedIn, go and look for the number of jobs that are there in your field and then decide to go ahead with the field. No, after finding this list, I feel like you don't really need to do all of that heavy lifting. All you need to do is come to this website, go into the vacancies option, which we will go together now, and see how many jobs are open for that particular field. Then I want you to look at how many invitations, how many people got PR in that field. Obviously, this number is not available anywhere very easily, but you can at least look how many invitations went out, and that gives you pretty much good idea. So let's have a look at teachers. Now, obviously you can see that early childhood teachers, 75,000, which is not less. Middle school teachers, only 900. Can you believe this? 900 middle school teachers. I mean, private tutors are more than middle school teachers. Then primary school teachers are 167, which is less, I would say, because don't you think for a population of more than 2 million, there should be more teachers? So yeah, I feel that's a low number for teachers, okay? And now let's look at engineers maybe. I feel there are very less engineers. Like, look at that. Chemical engineers only 3,100, civil engineers 6,800, electronics engineers just 10,000. Okay, there's another category for civil engineers which is 30,000, but I do feel a lot of engineers are needed in Australia. Okay, we will look at jobs, don't worry. Okay, let's look at maybe architects. 19,000, 31,000, 3,800, 400, way less, right? So architecture is something that you might want to look at. You get the point, right? So I feel like this is a very helpful, exploring by occupation is actually very helpful. But let's also explore what does it say and explore by industry. Okay, so now it's just given you a full picture of each and every industry. So you can see administrative, how much of the workforce is employed, what is the workforce share. You can see education and training. Obviously, this website does not show what is the shortage, but we will look into it. But this just kind of gives you a good enough understanding of what kind of skill Australia is really missing. Okay, so now that we've gone through occupation and industry profiles and kind of got a bit of understanding as to what field has how many employees working under them, and just kind of have an idea about what is actually going on in Australia, let's have a look at total new vacancies. That is where the actual gold lies. That is where you realize what kind of vacancies are there in the field that you're planning to pursue. Let's get into it. So, total new vacancies, you can have a read here about everything, and obviously you can download this website here, this PDF here. So, let's have a look at this PDF. What does it say? It's giving us that there are 1 million new vacancies. Imagine that. And it is also given us the breakdown of that 1 million vacancies. So as you can see that professionals are at the highest, no doubt. And laborers are at the highest. Sales workers are also quite high. Clerical and admin work is also high. Trade work is also very high, but definitely the highest is professionals, which includes all of our, teachers, doctors, all of that. And then it has also given us total new vacancies by states. So obviously, looking at this, you will feel like, oh my God, I was planning to go to, Tasmania, and it has such less jobs. But you also have to consider the amount of population that state has, and the population and the size of that area. Like, for example, Canberra has around 300,000 to 400,000 as their total population. So for that kind of a population, it still has almost 25,000 vacancies right now. Okay, so you have to think like that. I don't think there's anything else in this PDF, but what I really wanted us to do together was going through these dashboards that we have here. So this dashboard, I feel, is one of the best dashboards that I've come across in my life, and I'm an analyst. Okay, remember that. Now, this kind of shows us everything at a glance. It shows us what kind of industry is booming in which region, where is your particular field requires the most, is needed the most. How much is an accountant needed in all of Australia? How many current jobs are open there? What is, it's just everything. So let's go one by one. Let's say we look at an overview. Okay, now this overview tab clearly gives us the total population, which is 22 million of Australia. Then out of that 22 million, 14.6 million are employed. There's 4.3% unemployment rate. Youth unemployment rate is 10.2%, and that is how it works. Now, moving on, if we have a look at industries, so we can see that healthcare and social assistance has 2.3 million as the employment, like biggest employment force is in healthcare and social assistance sector. The second is professional, scientific and technical services. Third is construction. Fourth is retail trade. Fifth is education and training, public administration and safety, accommodation and food services, manufacturing. So this kind of gives you an idea that which field is actually the biggest in Australia, basically. Then if we look at occupations, this is where you really need to pay attention. Now, as you can see, this is kind of showing us all the vacancies in a particular field. And this is what I wanted to go through with you. Now you can see maximum number of jobs are for general clerks. Okay. Your general clerks could be anything, it could be. And then it also shows you here on the right hand side that there's no shortage for it. Even though there are almost 10,000 vacancies currently in India for this particular role, still there's no shortage for it, which means jobs are being advertised and people are there to support those. Like Australia knows that even though we need maximum people in this particular field, we don't really need to get it from abroad. We don't really need immigrants for it. Then we can see sales assistants are also pretty high in demand because obviously every business is about sales, right? So everyone needs sales assistants. But if you look at it, we don't have any shortage data for it. Now, moving on, the third most important field that Australia needs is registered nurses. Now you can see it's 6,000, and you can also see here that in July they had maximum vacancies, July, August 2023. But since then they've seen a sharp decline because after COVID there were a lot of immigration happened, and since then the demand has gone down. And now we kind of only need approximately 7,000 nurses, and going down you can see there is a huge shortage for nurses, like huge. So if you're someone who's planning to do nursing, you don't really need to even go to a regional state to do it. You can go to Melbourne or Sydney, do nursing and get your PR and all of that completely sorted. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about. This is where you don't need any agent's help. Now, fourth is advertising, public relations and sales managers. That is also huge in need, but that is also something that Australia has. Okay, there are a lot of Australians, it's kind of a general need. Advertising, PR and sales managers, it's not something that requires a lot of technicalities in it, and Australians do that a lot. So if you look at the shortage, there's no shortage for it. There's no shortage for advertising manager, not for PR managers, not for sales and marketing managers, because they have workforce for this kind of skill. Okay. Now let's look at general practitioners and resident medical officers. There is still a huge demand for them, and there's also a huge shortage for them. So this is kind of how I want you to search your own field. Now let's have I don't want to go through each and every present here, but I do want to go through accountants, okay? As you can see, there was a huge shortage of accountants back in 2023 because of COVID. But since then, all of those who were actually pursuing accounting here kind of got jobs, got settled. And now the vacancies have gone a bit down. But if you still think about it, there are still 3,200 accountants needed in Australia. And looking at the past data, a lot of people have stopped coming here to pursue accountancy. And a lot of Australians are also not choosing to do accountancy. So maybe accounting is something that can boom in 2026, but there is no guarantee about it. And like you can see, there is no shortage for general accountants or management accountants, but there is a shortage of taxation accountants. So if you're someone who's planning to pursue accountancy, maybe have a look at how you can get specialized in taxation accountancy. That might really help you. So this is what I'm talking about. Now, software and application programmers. I feel like I get a lot of requests from you guys in terms of what is the scope of IT, IT and cybersecurity. So I feel like software and application programmers can tell you that as well. Now, if you look at this chart here for software and application programmers, there was a huge shortage of them, like almost 8,000. But now there are only 3,200 jobs available. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. The jobs are not as much as of now because a lot of these jobs are, being taken by the people who were studying these. So if you think that, you have the right skills to be able to get one of those 3,200 jobs available, or maybe by the time you come here, study here and finish your course, there would be, the jobs might have gone up or down depending on the need of Australia. But looking at the past pattern, looking at, for example, people who would have come in July 2024 are now graduating in, 2026. So what do they feel? And this data is actually showing us only until November 2025. They can only estimate, right? So this is what I'm talking about. If you have the right skills, if you think you are capable of getting at least one of those 3,200 jobs, go for it. But then obviously if you come here and see analyst programmer, no shortage, developer programmer, no shortage, software engineers, no shortage. But software testers, there is a shortage. Software and application programmers, no shortage. So This is exactly what I'm telling you. Now, in these top 20 occupations, we have yet not seen business analytics, which is analysts. So let's type ICT business analysts and have a look. Cool. So ICT business and systems analysts, as you can see, there was a shortage, and that shortage was also only almost 3900, or 3700, 3900, not as compared to general practitioners or nurses or even accountants. ICT business analyst is a relatively new field, I feel, and even at their peak they only had approximately 4000 vacancies, and now they have been filled and we only have 1700 jobs. So think about it. People are not doing accountancies anymore only because they have just 3000 jobs available. But for analysts, there's only 1700 available, and I don't know, by the time people finish their courses who came in 2023, 2024, will you still have jobs available? Maybe you would, but do you think there'll be ever more than 1700? I don't think so. And now obviously if you scroll down, you can see there's no shortage for systems analysts or business analysts. Now I again want to talk about seeing this does not mean that you will not land a job. There are still chances that you might land a job. If you have the right skills, if you can prove yourself in the interviews, if you follow the right techniques to apply for jobs, you can still land jobs, and you might still be sponsored by the employer. You still have chances of being able to sort your PR yourself. But there is a huge if, there is a huge doubt, there is a huge maybe, and that is what I feel you guys need to avoid, right? Now, it can go two ways. It can go either this way, that I've actually been getting a lot of comments wherein you guys say that, oh, analytics is my passion, I love analytics, I really want to do it, what should I do? It's almost like you're trying to convince me that this is my passion, so can you just say yes, I can come and do it? I can say yes, go ahead, do it, follow your passion. But I don't know what kind of a person are you if analytics is your passion. I just feel that if there are 1700 jobs available for an analyst and you want to come and pursue that, by all means, do it. Come here, study analytics, go to the university every day, understand the classes, follow your passion, do analytics. But just know the clarity, just know that your chances to land a job might be less and your chances to land a PR might be way less. Because just imagine, if they only need 1700 analysts at the moment, why would they give you a PR? Why would they give PR to someone, a kind of an occupation which they don't even have that much shortage of? You know what I mean? Now let's have a look at ICT support technicians. That's just 800, 600. And this is also in the whole of Australia. Now let's say you're planning to come to, I don't know, Melbourne, Victoria. There's only 400 vacancies in the whole of Melbourne. But I always suggest all my subscribers and all my people who book one-on-one calls with me that just apply jobs nationally and see how things go. But also they've also written here that data needs to be interpreted with caution due to the combination of different data sources. Please note, vacancy numbers are estimates and may not reflect the actual number of open positions. Let's say you've decided 2 states, okay? You are like, I know I'm going to the regional area, but which regional area should I actually go to? Should I go to Perth or South Australia, Adelaide, or should I go to Canberra and Tasmania? So let's have a look at Canberra and Tasmania for a second. Obviously, we saw that population, employment rate, unemployment rate, all of these rates that you can see just to understand a bit more about that state. But coming to the industry section, you can see public administration, which is government jobs, are the highest share in Canberra, because Canberra is the capital of Australia and they have the maximum government related jobs. Whereas in Tasmania, most of their employment share is in healthcare and retail. And then for Canberra, again, the second topmost is professional, scientific and technical services. So this kind of gives you an idea as to how many vacancies are there for each field in each state. You can even literally compare like Victoria versus New South Wales, okay? New South Wales has higher population, obviously, and then they have very similar looking stats, and that is obvious. These are both 2 metro cities, metro states, and they have very similar data. But you can see what is required more. Like you can see that nurses are more in demand in Victoria, whereas general practitioners, which is doctors, accountants, are more in demand in Sydney. And to be honest, Sydney has 2 million more population than Victoria, so we can't really compare them that way. Maybe we can try and compare South Australia versus Western Australia, and maybe also search Adelaide versus Perth. Mining is a huge sector in Perth, so they have employment there. They need people there, and I think you get my point, right? So you can do this comparison yourself of whichever city you're planning to come to. But this is just amazing, don't you think so? Let me know in the comments what you think about this dashboard and this website. So we've gone through occupations, we've understood that now. So you can see that a lot of people are studying postgraduate under business and management section. A lot of undergrads are studying nursing. You know, how many completions have been there? You can see there are people studying law, nursing. So let's say you're planning to come to, I don't know, South Australia. And in South Australia, you're planning to, let's just keep full South Australia. So you can see a lot of undergrads are studying nursing. A lot of undergrads are studying behavioral sciences, and then topmost postgrad is also nursing and business management. So this kind of gives you an idea how many people are enrolled, how many people have completed a certain kind of degree. Then looking at industries, you can also search things by industries, so let's say you want to look at something in construction, and you're wanting to look at civil engineering, for example. So you can see that how many people were employed, what kind of employment is going on, what is the recruiter inside, this is not available at the moment, how many active businesses are running in a particular field, how many occupations are employed. So you can have a look at construction managers, you can see what is going on with construction managers, annual growth, whether there is a shortage or not. There is clearly a shortage. What is the part-time share? What is the female share? So, if you're someone who's planning to do a trade course, you can have a look at that particular trade course. I hope you're getting an understanding of what I'm trying to show you here. You can explore this as much as you want. You can go through it way in detail than I've gone here right now. So I hope you've understood what I've been trying to show you here using this Jobs and Skills Australia list. I feel like this is a huge gold mine that you can actually utilize a lot. And it's not easy, I know. You'll have to spend at least quite a few days in understanding how to go about this. What means what, and especially if you're someone who was planning to do analytics, you should definitely look into it and try and explore it and see how to even read all of this data, Now, obviously, we went to that Jobs and Skills Atlas, which was the best thing ever. But if we now go to this occupation shortage list, I feel this at a glance shows you whether that particular field is in shortage or not. Like, firstly, if you just want to look at what is the current status of that particular field, you can just go to this occupation shortage list, have a look at, your own occupation, and let's see, it's ICT business analyst. None of them are in shortage other than a little bit of shortage being in Northern Territory. And that is because not a lot of people want to go to Darwin, which is Northern Territory, because it's not as developed. But honestly, if you are passionate about analytics, maybe go and study there. Okay, so this website of occupation shortage list kind of shows you at a glance whether that particular field is in shortage or not. And the Job and Skills Atlas shows you a lot more details. Let's have a look at teachers. See, so many teachers are in demand, like primary school teacher, middle school teacher, early childhood school teachers, secondary school teacher, And I am not saying that, it's easy to become a teacher or something. It's definitely not easy. Nothing is easy. But at least if you want your future to be sorted, think about these fields. And I've already made a video on these topics, and I feel I still get so many comments asking what I think about a particular field. With this video, my goal was to make you understand what particular field is in demand, how to understand that, how to understand how many vacancies are there for a particular field, how many people are currently employed in that field, and try to understand using that. Okay, so after going through everything that we found under this data section, I wanted to explore this research section. Okay, and under this research section, when I went into studies, you can see everything. You can see our generative AI transition, clean energy capability study, early childhood education and care capacity study. So if you're someone who's planning to study early childhood, you can maybe go through this particular study and understand a bit more in detail. But what I want to go through with you is this international student pathways and outcome studies. I feel like this is such a great study to go through to in detail, this particular PDF report, because this actually helps you understand a lot of things. And when I went through it, it's like an 84-page PDF, and there were a lot of things that caught my eye. How Australia very well knows that students who plan to come here, study here, their long-term goal is to stay here, get their permanent residencies. Australian government also knows that, if you're coming in a field that is not as much needed in Australia, you do change your field from analytics to teaching to nursing, or you move to Tasmania or Canberra to actually get your permanent residencies. So government knows what is actually going on. And then this particular chart on page number 54 caught my attention, which basically shows top 10 occupations for temporary graduate visa holders. Temporary graduate visa is the visa that you get after completing your student visa here. So you can see that maximum number of people are accountants and registered nurses. And then there's green, which is a bit dark as well. That's also software and application programmers, which is people in IT. Then there's chefs, there's waiters, there's accounting clerks, there's cleaners. But I would say this 84-page guide actually tells a lot of things. It kind of shows that government knows what is going on. It kind of shows that what are the occupations that actually are booming, the occupations that kind of international graduates actually lean towards after completing their course. They're also saying that registered nurses had high retention rates among visa holders over time. Okay, so at least 3/4 of those who had a student visa remained in that occupation for a period of 5 to 10 years. So basically, if someone does nursing, they actually end up becoming a nurse and they work as a nurse. Whereas on the other hand, the retention rate for chefs was the lowest, with just over half of those followed reporting chef as their occupation for 5 to 10 years. So for example, it's trying to say that if you came here and did analytics but then changed into nursing, you worked as a nurse for 5 to 10 years. But if you did that with chef, if you came to do analytics but changed it into chef, you didn't really follow it further. You only did it to show it on paper, which is why they've now reduced giving PRs to chefs, because they've realized that there's some foul play going on there. So, it kind of just indicates that the attrition rate for chefs was just under 50% over a 5-year period, which is not great. Now, on page 57, it is also talking about what the policy has observed. There have been some policy observations, and the first sentence in that is, many international students lack opportunities to develop English language proficiencies and to have work-relevant practical and cultural experience while studying. Attitude towards international graduates may further restrict opportunities in the workforce. See, the thing is, when we come here, we try to not improve our English. Like, honestly, if you go through my comment section, you'll find so many comments that do not have proper sentence formation even. And I feel bad, and I am definitely thinking into what can I do to help you guys, because having proper English is really important to land a job, to make networks, to do anything in Australia. So this goes on to say that financially pressured students and graduates who cannot gain a foothold in their qualified fields, which could be accountancy or even analytics, often have to take up lower skilled jobs which do not build employability in their fields of studies, sometimes trapping them in this low-skilled employment cycle. And I've talked about this a lot of times in my videos. They are also known as more vulnerable to exploitation. Now, think about it. If you're someone who doesn't have great English, you're still studying, you're still trying to do a lot of things, but you're not able to converse with Australians in an English speaking country. So you are more prone to being exploited. You are more prone to be given less than minimum wages because you don't have the right skill. You don't have the language skill, which is the most important in this country. Now, if you look at page number 58 of this PDF, you can see how they're talking about us postgraduate international students working to support our fee and our, day-to-day expenses. And they've actually mentioned over 90% of Indian and nearly 96% of Nepalese higher education students cited to the ability to work while studying as one of the reasons they chose Australia. While a very small percentage of Chinese students said ability to work was a motivating factor. So basically what this official report from Australian government is saying, that they know that 90% of Indian students and 96% of Nepalese students chose Australia only because they allow us to work part-time as much as we want. I mean, not as much, there is a limit, but that is the main driver, main motivator for them to choose Australia. So another thing that has caught my attention on this report is that even employers have this perception that graduates are not job ready. and that can be really heightened, especially for us international students. So it's saying that some employers reported generalized concerns about international graduates' work readiness, citing limited practical Australian work experience or no or limited exposure to the technology, tools, and processes that are used in workplaces. In many ways, this mirrors feedback that employers provide about graduates more generally. For example, the quality indicators of learning and teaching employer satisfaction survey reported that 38% of responding employers agreed that more domain specific skills and knowledges would have better prepared graduates for the workforce. So basically what they're saying is, and this is exactly what I tell in my videos as well, that once you land in Australia, you need to start working. Because when you start working for those 2 years before being able to start your professional job in Australian workforce, you should have collected a lot of experience in terms of understanding how things work in Australia, how the Australian work experience actually is, to be able to explain to those employers later in your interviews. You can't just come here, get settled, not work, think about it after 6 to 7 months. And like I'm saying, it's not just about money or earning. It's a lot about the kind of person you start becoming. And that shows in your interviews later when you complete your studies and go for proper interviews. So reading this report, you can actually get a lot of insights in terms of understanding what not to do and how to actually become better for an employer, for an Australian employer, for Australian workforce. And then, there are a lot of other things that people have mentioned in this particular report. There's an employer that's saying that the longevity of the current visa within Australia, that's a big factor for us. Basically they're saying that if we train you and your visa expires, our whole training goes to waste. And then there's another health employer that's saying that if we kind of offer you a role and you come and say that, oh, I have to go to my country for an emergency and I don't know when I'll be back, this kind of feels very irresponsible to the employer, and that's why employers feel reluctant to then hire international graduates. Then someone here is saying that making a small talk is a real skill, and if you're not strong in your English communication, that's a whole other level of challenge again. So that's what I'm saying, making a small talk, going out of your comfort zone, networking, all of this really needs your attention. You really need to put this on the top of your priority skill, that when I go to Australia, these are the things that I will have to do to get out of my comfort zone and get better at English. So I really hope that this particular report and this whole video of the run through of this website was helpful for you and kind of helps you to make the right choice. And now I'm not saying that, if you're already enrolled in one of these courses, you're fully doomed, but you need to be more realistic of your timelines, your competition, the kind of jobs that are available, and what your next step should be. Like I said, if there are jobs, some people do get those jobs, and then if there's not many invitations being sent out, not many PRs being sent out, you still have the chance to, kind of get sponsored by your employer if you have the right skill. You can definitely pivot smartly as well. Think about what other field is in demand right now and think if you can change your course. At the end, I just want to tell you 4 important things. No field can actually guarantee you PR. Shortage today does not mean shortage forever. Skills actually matter more than any degree can. And lastly, and very important, if someone can't explain you why they are advising you something, question them. Ask them, why do you say that? Why do you think that is? Always question, always be curious about learning things. Now, if this video was helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me a lot. And if you want to understand a little bit more about how to get your PR in Australia, you can watch this video here, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.